Let's start a podcast about our mental health. For no good reason why, let's call it Defying.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another slice of Mind Cake.
Mind Cake?
Beautiful. With him,
Lee Crompton. And him,
Paul Beeson.
hooray.
We're getting better at that.
2 episodes in and we've nailed it.
So how have you been, Lee?
I've been very good. Unlike your good self, who's been all over the country, by all accounts.
I've been touring around for the last, almost month.
Mm-hmm.
I got to go home for a couple of days, or a day and a half, actually. Now I'm back down south in another premiere in Leicester, rehearsing my next show.
Which is?
Am I allowed to plug it?
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. Plug it, yeah.
Oh, sweet. Okay. So I am performing in the Polar Express this Christmas.
And are you the polar bear or are you the train?
I'm actually the conductor.
All right. Is that the Tom Hanks bit?
The Tom Hanks part from the movie. Yes, that's me. But it's great fun. It's a brilliant little show.
Tickets still available.
Yes, and there's a few Polar Expresses happening up and down the country. This is the one at Bolton Abbey and Embsay railway station in the Yorkshire Dales. It's
right.
lovely
Okay.
the world.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that's enough from me. How have you been?
I've been good. I think that the feedback has generally been very good. We reached 102 plays last night.
102?
Yeah, admittedly, I think 98 of those are me.
Well, I have listened to it once.
Have you had any feedback?
I have, actually, yeah. I was speaking to a friend in Leicester on Wednesday night, and she said that she'd listened to it and she thoroughly enjoyed it, and she was really looking forward to episode 2.
Well, hello to our listener in Leicester.
Yeah, hi, Tilly.
Hi, Tilly. No, I generally, I think that the general consensus has been that the chemistry has been very good. Not so much the content, I think, because there's not a lot of mental health content. And actually, people said, "Oh, you must be very good friends because you know each other really well." I'm like, not particularly. No, don't know each other that well, really, at all.
Do you know what we should do, Lee? Actually, is maybe a little bonus episode where we tell our adoring fans how we actually do know each other and how we met and how we kind of ended up where we are.
Yeah, that kind of ties into what we're about to explore in episode 2 as well. What other feedback have we had? Don't eat cake. But if you
so close to the microphone. Yeah,
yes,
you were quite a noisy eater, weren't you?
And I didn't realise until I have got cake, but there's the today's piece. I'll take a picture of it for later. It's lemon drizzle from
It looks lovely.
Alfie & Co. I'm going to give them a plug because it's very tasty. Alfie & Co. in Drimmen. So we've got that's today's cake, but I'm not going to eat it next to the microphone.
But don't do that because I couldn't edit around that last time.
No. So sorry about that. I will eat it afterwards with a cup of tea. Do you think we probably need to get into the episode? Because I'm conscious this is just more waffle as usual as per episode 1.
Yeah. Okay. So we actually recorded episode 2 a little while ago. This is just our sort of introduction to the episode.
More waffle.
With more waffle. Yeah. But we had good feedback. I think people like the waffle.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
Here is episode 2, where the lovely Mr. Lee Crompton will tell us a bit about his background.
Let's get into it.
Hello, so welcome to another slice of Mind Cake.
Mind Cake.
If you got through the first episode that we dropped, congratulations. That must have been tough.
We just said we talked more about cake than we did about mental health.
Yes. What we're going to do is talk about our own stories, not in a self-indulgent way, but just to give you a brief overview of the kind of things that we have been through, which might give you more of an insight as to why we are wanting to do a podcast around the subject of mental health. We're going to start with my compadre, Lee.
Hello.
And he's going to tell us a little bit about his story and what brought him here today in my kitchen. By the way, just before we continue, you probably noticed this in episode 1. If you can hear a buzzing, it's just my fridge. All right. The microphone is quite good at picking up a lot of ambient noise, so there is a little bit of a fridge buzz in the background. But you know, when this picks up and we get our own little studio, the quality is going to be much better.
No, I quite like the homeliness of it.
Well, there we go.
I think people will be. I would imagine one of the first emails we get is people complaining if the fridge noise isn't in the background.
You think?
I think so.
So the fridge is like the.
I think it's almost
third
like the
character.
Yes, I think so. Yeah, yeah, and the squeaky chairs as well.
Yeah, sorry. About
No
the squeaky
expense
chair.
spared.
Jesus. Right. Okay. So Lee.
Yes.
Why don't you start from where you want to start?
I will start from being diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, because if you get anaplastic thyroid cancer, you get a special pass to go straight to stage 4, and was basically told 6 months to live would be a positive, I quote, positive outcome. So it is a very rare form of cancer. The average life expectancy is 4 months. 95% of people, I think, are dead within 12 months. And at the time, we'd just gone into lockdown. So it was September. We'd also gone into lockdown in the March, September 2020. I was diagnosed. And at the time, I had a 7-month-old daughter and a 3-year-old. And so the future was bleak. Didn't think I would get to see, obviously, the girls growing up. Oh, the fridge has stopped now.
It's because it's intently listening to your tale.
Yeah, that's right, of my tale of woe. That's kind of the backstory, which I think we'll probably delve down into a bit deeper, because obviously there's a lot to unpack there. 6 months, the 6 months came and gone. So anyway, we're now at 3 years, aren't we? We're 3 years on, so spoiler alert, I'm still alive. But
which is amazing, by the way, when you were given less than
I was
6
given-
months.
I was
Or
given
6 months would be like the absolute...
6 months was a positive outcome. So again,
Yeah.
you're thinking, is that 4 months in normal health and then 2 months in palliative care? Or so yes, I thought I'll probably get to see Erin's first birthday in January in some form. Probably won't get to see Isabel's 4th birthday. Yeah, you're left with a huge to-do list. So
not a lot of time to do it either.
Not a lot of time to do it. Yeah, just sorting out stuff in the house so that it's not left behind for my wife to deal with. So we've got a new boiler very quickly. Sorted out wills, power of attorney, because obviously I didn't know how long I was going to be compos mentis. Future birthday presents and Christmas presents for the kids for the years I'm not going to be there. Even picked my funeral music.
Can I ask what it was?
No, you can't.
Okay. Wow. Was not expecting that.
No, maybe for a future episode.
All right.
We can do. Well, there you go. There's an episode in itself. What would be your funeral music?
Wow.
I'm not asking you now, but we can get people to message in.
I already know.
Do you?
It's the music from the Amiga version of Treasure Island Dizzy.
I don't know what that is.
I'll play it for you one day.
Can you get it? Can you sample that into the thing?
Possibly. So
Right, can you
possibly
edit-
while we're
edit
talking
that
now,
into the
it'll
edit
be
program?
underscoring as we talk.
Okay.
Obviously, I'm being facetious. I don't want this played at my funeral.
Oh, okay. I don't know what it is. Not right.
You'll
Okay.
yeah, anyway.
Is it very upbeat?
It's very upbeat, but also repetitive and very old school computery sounding.
Is it?
Yeah, it's from a computer.
Right.
Anyway, right, we might edit that out. So.
Did you want to know?
So you had cancer.
I had two. It was either going to be "Let's Go Crazy" by Prince.
Okay.
Let's get nuts. Let's search for the purple banana till they put us into trusts. Mm-hmm. Or for all our differences. I actually asked Peter.
Okay.
Sorry, we should explain this in another episode. But I asked Peter if I could have that as my funeral music, and he obviously said no. And no, he didn't. And he said, so yeah, it was going to be one of those two.
Did he say he had to clear it with
the management?
Yeah.
You're going to name drop now, aren't you?
No, I'm not.
No.
That's for another episode.
That's for another episode. So where was I? I'd had cancer.
You had cancer, and you were quickly planning
to-do list
for your family's future.
Yes.
I suppose.
Yeah, and I think I had 2 operations. One was a routine operation to get lump out of neck, which was allegedly all going to be fine. Then it turns out it wasn't fine. So the second operation was then to get the rest of lump out of neck. So you got a Hearts apron on your back of your door?
I do. Yeah.
For someone who doesn't bake.
No, but I do.
Established.
I cook a lot. Though.
Oh, okay.
So
Fine. Just not cake.
Just not cake.
Right.
I don't
okay.
bake cake. I cook steak.
Back to the cancer. 2 operations,
3 days, radioactive iodine treatment. They gave me the highest dose that they possibly could. And yes, I've quite frankly been amazed. They don't exactly know why I'm still here, but I am.
Hey.
And I think I'm at a place now where I can reflect on that rather than being in it, reflect on it. So I still go for obviously appointments and blood tests and what have you. But I remember that Maggie's were very supportive. There was a particular person at Maggie's who said, I'd have to say quite early on, that the problem would be, or that I might find there is a problem if it transpired that I had dodged a bullet and maybe... So if I give you an example, I remember about a month, maybe not even that, after being told I had 6 months, I went to see another oncologist and they said, yeah, that might be a little bit pessimistic. We think you've maybe got 12 months. And I remember coming out of there, punching the air, going, yes, 12 months.
Understandably, you've suddenly got twice as long as you thought you were going to have.
Yeah, it took a couple of days for me to go, hang on.
Yeah.
Why am I so ecstatic that somebody's told you've got a year to live? And I had a conversation with the guy at Maggie's and he said, you might find that you struggle if somebody tells you actually you might have more time than that and it might be, slightly different for you. And I remember thinking at the time, this guy is an idiot because who, after being told that they've got 6 months to live and then being told, you know what, actually, you might be all right. It's not going to be clicking their heels like Morecambe and Wise going, yes, dodged a bullet. Yet, here we are, 3 years on, and I've had a lot of people message me and say that they're struggling with their mental health, and having been through what I've been through, how have I remained so positive? If I put a post on Facebook, very positive, mostly positive, that I get back saying how resilient I am and how positive I am and yada, 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 yada. Which is great, but the reality is I'm not here to give advice to other people because, like you say, and I'm struggling with my mental health, and have you got any methods that you use to try and get through? And I'm like, well, I have this particular backstory, but actually the reality is I see a clinical psychologist once a fortnight and I'm on antidepressants. That comes with its own burden, I guess, because, not only that, I'm supposed to be, I've been given this second chance and I should be making the most of every opportunity and living each day like it's my last, because quite frankly I was told it was. And yet I've opened up Pandora's box. My face has been thrust inside it. You're faced with your own mortality. And then, as nice as it is that yes, I've seemingly, touched wood, dodged that bullet, they've shut the box and gone, well, just forget about that. Just go back to work and pretend none of that happened. Just go back and price some variations and yada yada yada.
The trauma of facing your own mortality and then kind of just being left like going, well, okay, now what now? Yeah, it must be a lot to process. So I guess when people come to you for advice or whatever it is about mental health, they just assume that because you've been through what you've been through that you are just all singing, all dancing all the time because you have this new lease of life, as it were. But that's obviously not the case.
Even just getting through that period and up to now. I mean, I went to an oncology appointment last month because that was for 3 years, and even now they're saying, well, we're getting a bit more confident with each appointment that you have. But I mean, we'd hate to use the C word and say that you're cured. I mean, you're in remission, but I mean, we wouldn't say you're cured. And that's just like chopping you off at the kneecaps, going, oh right, okay, we're still, because I'd let my guard down. I mean, admittedly, Fatty Tompkins here has had What Do You Want From Greg's, Paul, and he's had a steak bake and a sausage roll.
Yeah,
but I'd kind of let my guard down a bit and had the odd. I'm not a saint, so I have the odd beer and sausage roll and whatever. Thinking
you had about 6 beers the other day. You were out with me, and about 12 bags of crisps. The odd beer,
pork scratchings.
Yeah. No, but I mean, it's not. You don't drink to excess.
No.
A lot of the time, do you?
No. But what I'm saying is, I'd had the odd beer and had the pork scratchings. Well, that's okay. And then they're told, oh well, you might not be 100% out of the woods. You still need to be on the lookout, kind of thing. I'm like, oh, I've maybe dropped my guard a bit too soon. Anyway, the point I suppose I'm making is that despite the fact that, and yes, I'm doing okay. And on the face of it, you wouldn't know there's anything kind of going on behind the eyes. Although I've got this, fairly unique backstory, the reality is I'm like tens of thousands of other people just trying to keep your head above water now, whether that's because of, whatever reason that might be. Because I thought about doing this podcast, and I thought, well, people don't want to hear me ramble on, which is exactly what I'm doing now, but people don't want to hear me ramble on about cancer, but it's actually the aftermath of that. So whether that's cancer, whether that's, whatever struggles that people are going through, and I thought it'd be a good opportunity to explore, hear other people's stories, of which I've heard a number of remarkable stories in the last however long, with people sharing their stories with me, and exploring different therapies. I know there's again certain things that help me, and I know there's certain things that have helped you. Yeah, I think just having a no hold barred, if you like, discussion about it, because what I found was that people, this is going to sound disparaging, but when you've got the cancer, people don't generally want to talk to you. What on earth do you say to someone who's terminally ill? Hello, you're right. No, I'm not, mate. I'm dying.
I mean, I can see the awkwardness around that kind of thing.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to. What the hell do you say to someone? You're right.
Because everything you say, you start to sort of second guess whether it's appropriate. Even just going, "Hiya, mate. How you doing?
How you doing?"
Which you would say to anybody, your best friend or somebody you pass in the street. How we doing? But then you go, I can't say that because he's got cancer.
He's not doing really well.
Yeah. So but then you also don't want to patronise or just be like,
"No, it must be terrible."
All the time either. So yeah, I do get that.
Yeah, but then you get, sorry, again, I'm going off at tangents here. This was supposed to be the summary version. Mm-hmm. I've had people who have contacted me or rung me or met me in tears. Going, I can't believe this is happening to you. It must be awful. It must be terrible. I feel terrible, and I should have made more of our friendship, and I should have done this, and I should have done that.
Wow.
And there's me going, oh, they're there. It'll be okay. And I'm comforting them. People like the good luck story or the, whatever story that is, that have come out the other side, they don't still really want to talk about this bit that I'm talking about now, because it could be, you should have really called it What's Round the Corner podcast, because it could happen to you, it could happen to me, it could happen to anybody. Yeah. Mm-hmm. We're all potentially in the firing line, whether it's cancer, whether it's, whatever. Well, I found myself in a situation the other day where I was regaling the story to someone around the dinner table, and they said, well, what did they say when you turn up in September, and in terms of treatment or whatever? And I said, well, they kind of said we were making it up as we go along, because we might scan you after 5 years, we'll keep taking bloods every 6 months, but I mean, we're really kind of making it up on the hoof, because without putting too fine a point on it, Lee, everyone else is dead by now. And the person I'm telling went, whoa, that's quite a story. And then there was like a silence for a minute, and then somebody went, but he didn't die in the end, so it was all a big fuss about nothing. And we all had a good laugh about it. Yeah, because they don't want to talk about that. Yeah. And I know it's a mood killer, but then you'd end up talking about the football or whatever. And I get that, but people don't want to again talk about how did that feel. Uh-huh.
But then I suppose that in part kind of leads us to where we are today. Obviously, you've been through the mill and you've had a lot of stuff to deal with, and a lot of the time you're not getting the opportunity to talk openly about what you've been through, because, like you've just said, people either don't want to engage in that, they don't want to linger on the morbid stuff. Oh, but you're past it now, so let's talk, like you say, let's talk about it. Did you see the game the other night or whatever? And it's like, I need to offload here, I need to feel listened and validated, and you're not getting any of that from certain people.
I've had mental health people who shall remain nameless tell me it's been, this was actually after 2 years, it's been 2 years now, do you think it's probably maybe time that you change the narrative?
Wow, okay.
I'm like, and that makes, and again, we're talking about mental health and make you feel guilty. Oh really? Oh, people don't want to hear about it, and I should be over it by now, because I didn't die, so
But then that makes you feel bad within yourself for having those kind of
feeling
feelings.
Sad about it still, but I should be out of it. And you're a mental health professional, so I definitely should be over it.
That is, I can't believe that. That's incredible.
Well, that's the tip of the iceberg, my friend. We'll do a whole episode on things not to say to a terminally ill patient.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Anyway,
so yes, I guess that's kind of why we're here today.
That's why I'm here. That's why you're here, to explore. I am as interested in hearing other people's stories as, is it more to do with me? So is it me, whether this is me trying to glean coping mechanisms from other people, or is this me sharing little tips? Because as we know, we're not endorsing any...
No, and I think it's quite important to say we're not ever going to particularly endorse a coping mechanism or a form of therapy or whatever it might be. We're never going to endorse something, or we're never going to belittle it either.
No, I think there is one I'm going to belittle.
For another episode,
Yes.
though. Okay. We are going to, I guess, over the course of the next few episodes, we're going to start to explore some coping mechanisms and methods of trying to, maintain healthy mental health.
And what might work for you might not work for me, or vice versa.
Exactly. But I think now doing the podcast, because I'm very guilty of, not asking for help a lot of the time, when it comes to stuff like this. So actually doing this podcast will make me experience things that I probably wouldn't do, normally. And then I might find something that really works for me, but like you just said, that might not work for you or anybody who's listening. It's maybe a bit of trial and error. But we're going to kind of do that trial and error for the listeners to see.
Yeah.
And then we can talk honestly about the experience and whether we think it helped us or not. And even if it didn't help us, that's no reason to just write it off either. It's a difficult thing because everybody's wired differently and everybody will respond differently to certain things.
But, well, there you go. So, I was talking, as I said, I had my clinical psychology appointment this morning.
That's right, yeah.
Talking about placebo effects. So it might be that in one person's opinion something is a load of bobbins, but if for whatever reason that, maybe completely unscientifically, worked for somebody else, then who's to question that?
No, absolutely. Even if it is a placebo, if you feel better,
Yeah.
whatever that might be.
Apart from the one which we'll talk about.
Okay, well, I look forward to that. So now we're at this place where we're going to do a podcast. Well, we are doing a podcast, and it could be a bit of both for you, I guess. It's a way to perhaps talk a little bit more honestly and openly to me, but also to the other people listening in as well.
All 5 of them.
If what we're doing reaches 5 people and they get some sort of enjoyment out of it, then I think we're doing our job.
Yes.
It'd be nice if it was 5 million people.
I think you're right in the fact that, and again, there's another reason I was interested in doing it, in that I've, like I say, had a handful of people, a few people reach out to me, and because I post about it now and again on Facebook, and I get nice messages. Some people drop me private messages and say how nice it is that I talk so openly about the warts and all of kind of the aftermath and how that affects them mentally, and how they felt better because they realised that either in their opinion, which is usually wrong, their situation is nothing compared with being told you've got 6 months to live, or it's just helped them with not feeling quite as alienated as maybe they did before. If this podcast reaches 10 people, I'm gonna be optimistic.
Double figures.
10 people. Mm-hmm. Let's go double figures. And helps them in some way, shape or form to feel less alienated, or just more open to talk about things, or maybe try something that we explore, then that's 10 people that you've, I was going to say touched, but that sounds wrong.
No.
Don't say that.
You can only touch me.
Can I?
No, I didn't mean it like that. I meant like physically you can only touch me because the can't touch the listeners.
That is true.
I'm sitting like 3 feet away from you,
That's
so
true.
You physically can't. Don't. But I
could.
Yeah. And it's that threat that keeps this podcast on a knife edge, isn't it?
Freezer started again.
Yeah, he's back.
Yeah,
Fraser.
he's back, yeah.
Is that what you called him?
Freezer.
I thought you said Fraser. I thought you'd called the
Have you
fridge
called-
Fraser. You just have
Has
named...
he got a name?
Well, he does now.
Freezer.
Fraser the Freezer. Oh my.
Right, so that's it from me. That's why I'm doing it.
But we'd love to hear from some of you out there, even if you're drop a little message and just go, I listened to your podcast and it made me want to rip my own ears
I
off.
thought it was all right.
Yeah, whatever. We welcome all types of feedback, good or bad.
And recipes.
And we are still going to work on that PO box, aren't we, to
definitely.
get real cake. But for now, we hope you've enjoyed this slice of mind cake. See you later.
Bye.
And there we have it, everybody. That was Lee's story. Mate, what a tale that was.
Yes, to use an expression that's overused, what a roller coaster.
What a roller coaster. Yeah. But actually, do you know what? Listening back to that, I have a few more questions for you.
Okay.
Because I was just too busy at the time when we recorded it, was just, really into the story and listening to what you had to say. And I didn't ask a lot of follow-up questions, and I think that it might be useful for everybody just to know a little bit more, if you wouldn't mind.
Absolutely fine. Yes, more than happy
All right.
to share.
So the first question I have for you is what made you go to the doctor in the first place?
Yeah, that was the thing. So I always thought I had kind of raised glands in my neck, and then obviously in March 2020, the world stopped and we all went into lockdown. We had a then 2-month-old baby. So she wasn't at nursery. Izzy wasn't at nursery. My wife's on maternity leave. I'm working from home. We're not leaving the house. We're not seeing anybody. And I've still got, because obviously I've blamed it on the kids before, bringing on snotty noses and whatever. It's just I've got a bit of a virus or whatever. But when you're not going anywhere, not seeing anyone, why have I still feel like I got a lump in my neck.
Did you ever think it was COVID at the time, or sort of COVID
No, because I think we
related?
were probably testing quite a lot? I mean, you forget, don't you? We probably,
Yeah,
I don't know whether
you probably
we
were in the
probably
early
wasn't.
days. I would have thought.
I don't think they had testing kits in those days, did they? Right back at the beginning, did they?
Not right at the very beginning, I don't suppose. Yeah,
Plus, I wasn't
but,
seeing anyone, so it's not. I couldn't really catch it from anyone because we weren't seeing anybody.
No,
We
no,
weren't
yeah,
like these
that's true.
politicians driving to Dundee in our bare feet, visiting relations. So I went to the doctors, and they said, well, we should probably get it checked. So I had a biopsy done.
Mhm.
I got the result. I think it was about a couple of weeks later. Well, I didn't get the results back. The results were that it was inconclusive. So I went to Larbert Hospital to get the results, and they said, it's inconclusive. So what do you want to do? And I said, well, what are my options? And they said, well, you can either have another biopsy, which will take a couple of weeks, or we could just keep an eye on it. Looks fine. We've ultrasounded it. Looks absolutely fine. We could just keep an eye on it. But it is 7 centimeters long at this point. It's quite big.
Bloody hell.
Up the way. And actually, there's one photo you can see of me, just one photo about 5 years ago, and you can see it. It must be the light.
Oh,
anyway,
wow.
or we could go straight to surgery. And for some reason, for someone who checks with his wife, what flavor packet of crisps did you want again from the supermarket? I just want to double check. I said, well, just go to surgery, shall we? And they said, well,
Like literally then and there.
they're in the chair, yeah. Which is not like me at all. No, I'll go away and have a think about it. I'll talk to Gemma about it and what we're going to do. And I went, well, just take it out. And he went, are you sure? That's a bit extreme. And I was like, well, if it's 7 centimeters long, surely it's just going to get bigger.
Yeah.
Well, probably, yeah. And I'm like, well, then it's just going to be even more difficult to get out. Yeah. Well, just take it out now then. And they went, well, we could probably get you in quite quickly because COVID. Nobody wants to go to hospital because everyone was like scared of, nobody was really going to the hospital. So they got me in quite quickly and had the operation. And yeah, I remember I came round in the bed. Surgeon said, I've had it in my hand. It was a big bugger, but looks absolutely fine. Couple of things we probably need to get under the microscope. Couple of dense bits we need to look at more closely, but should be absolutely fine. But we'll contact you with the results. Okay, happy days, and that was it.
Well, but then you had another one, right? You had 2 operations.
Well, no, but the reason I had the second operation was it then transpired. So 3 weeks I think had gone past, and I haven't heard anything. And I get a phone call to say, "Can I come in for the results?" So I said, "Yeah, absolutely fine." So Gemma said, "Do you want me to come with you?" I was like, "No. Obviously, we've got 2 small children. It's 45-minute drive." I said, "It's fine." I said they would have, if it was anything serious, they would have contacted me sooner than 3 weeks. And I don't think you were allowed not visitors, but you weren't allowed sort of companions to go in with you anyway at that point.
No, you could only go in one at a time to
Yeah.
doctors and things, couldn't you? Yeah.
Yeah. So I drove over to Larbert on my own like an idiot. And I think it was like a 9 o'clock appointment in the morning. And as soon as I wandered in, I knew, hang on a minute, there's something not quite right. There was a middle-aged woman sat in the corner. I thought, well, she's not a student nurse. Why is she here and looking so glum? And yes, turns out that she worked for a cancer charity, which I found out at the end, which is another story. But that was when they said, and he didn't tell me timescales then. He was just shaking his head going, I'm so sorry, this is awful. It's not good news at all. Glasgow will be in contact and blah, 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 blah. And here's a leaflet for what it's worth, or a booklet on thyroid cancer, but yours is so rare that there's nothing about yours in the booklet, but you might as well have it for what it's worth. So I said, well, would you mind writing on the front what it is I have got then? Yeah, but don't Google it. Whatever you do, don't Google it. He said, there's no good news when you Google anaplastic thyroid cancer. Right, okay. So then I knew, but we're going to get you in for a CT scan straight away. So I knew that Gemma would know that something was up because, like I was saying, 9 o'clock appointment, you go in, tickety-boo, you're all fine, back in the car for 9:15. Well, it's now 9:45 and I'm waiting for a CT scan and I can't get a signal in the hospital. So I knew she did. So I had to ring her from the car park and tell her.
All right. I was going to ask, how did you break the news to Gemma?
Well, I kind of had to. She knew. Yeah, it was a phone call from the car park. I said, "I'll speak to you when I get in." But yeah, it's not. It's cancer, and it's not. It doesn't look good. I don't know how bad at that point, because I think he sort of. I kind of wandered out of there, and he doesn't really go in. Do you know what I mean? It's not like I didn't feel this overriding sadness until later on, and I'd kind of processed it a bit. But at the time, you're kind of like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine," because your brain doesn't compute. And at that time, they hadn't put a time scale on it.
But it's funny how you cope in the there and then, whether it's adrenaline or whatever is happening mentally. I'm going to go off on a slight little tangent here, but I was in quite a bad car accident a few years ago. Luckily, it was just my car; nobody else was involved in it. But I walked away with a tiny little piece of glass stuck in my pinky, and that was it.
Wow!
And people were stopping at the side. This was on the M9. People were stopping at the side of the motorway and going, "Oh my God, we've phoned an ambulance." And I was like, "I'm fine." I was like, "I'm fine."
Adrenaline.
Yeah. This woman was putting her jacket around me and stuff, and sit down. I was like, "Honestly, I'm fine." And it wasn't until like about 6 hours later, I was like, "I'm not fine."
Yeah.
But yeah, so
a
different Yeah. So I suppose you had that kind of thing going on, like in the heat of the moment, just like
I just remember subconsciously looking back at it now. I just remember subconsciously shaking my head, just very slight, not like in a mad shaky head way, but just very, very gently, just like this is just a dream. This is just a dream. This isn't happening, is it? I'm going to wake up in a minute and go, I nearly swore then. Fudge biscuits. That was awful. But I'm awake now. Phew. Oh no, hang on. I'm not. No. This is actually happening. And I think there is a very much a sort of line in the sand. Like even now is the before and after of. Oh, when did that happen? Or was it before the cancer or after the cancer? Because there is like life happens, up to that point. So I remember, and I'm going to name check. Hello, Heather, if you're listening.
Hi, Heather.
Hi, Heather.
Who's Heather?
So, Heather is a friend of ours who was at the time helping us. She's got an eye for sort of interior design, and we were in a WhatsApp chat, sending. I call them pin interests, and I know I do it on purpose. People go, it's Pinterest. No, it's pin interest. So we were sending pin interests to each other about what we thought we were going to do with our hall. In terms of, well, we could maybe have this mirror, or maybe have this radiator casing, and maybe have this wallpaper. And it's do frantic on the night before I went to get the results. And then I obviously got the results at 9 o'clock in the morning, the following morning. And then you realise that obviously the chat stopped because we're not really interested in radiator boxings then, or wallpaper, or whatever, because life's gone off at a slightly different tangent. And I said to Gemma, I said, which comes into the next subject, who do you tell and when? I said, we're going to have to tell Heather because it seems really bad that she's given us all these, maybe you could do this, and here's a link to this shop, and and maybe Dunelm Mill doing this. And then all of a sudden, she's heard nothing from us. Just seems really rude. I said, I don't know what you tell her, but you're going to have to tell her something.
And that's quite interesting because Heather might not have been the first person out with your immediate family that you would have told. But you felt you had to
disrespect,
because of
Heather. No, probably
but because of the WhatsApp chat, you'll need to tell her because she'll think I'm being rude by not replying to the WhatsApp.
But the world, that's what I'm saying, the world stops. So all of a sudden, all the things that you thought mattered in terms of, I didn't do that work email, or I've eaten a bit of cake. I've eaten a bit of cake and I've put on a couple of pound, or whatever it is. I haven't replied to blah blah blah. Doesn't matter. One iota.
Just inconsequential at this stage.
Inconsequential. Your whole world just changes on a dime.
So when you're talking there about that sort of line in the sand kind of thing, do you still quantify everything into sort of pre-cancer, post-cancer, even now?
Yeah, that's that line in the sand. And we go, well, no, it must have been before Because I don't know, do people do that with COVID? People must do that with COVID, right?
I guess like just as a significant event, yeah, you do hear people sort of going, "Oh, when was that? Was that before COVID or was that
Yeah, yeah.
after COVID?" It's like
Uh-huh.
they kind of use it as a historical benchmark now,
Hmm.
I guess.
Yeah, I suppose I have two historical benchmarks in the same year.
In periods, yeah,
Hmm.
but one very personal and one very
Public.
affecting everybody, I
Yeah.
suppose.
Yeah.
So you still have that kind of mindset
Yeah, I don't think
in
it's a conscious thing.
2023.
It's like subconsciously you go, well, was that before September 2020 or after 2020? Because
Mhm.
obviously you're again, your mind is in a completely different place, and that sort of brings you on to, well, then, so going back to Heather, we've told
The
Heather,
lovely Heather.
the lovely Heather, we've told Heather. I'm actually seeing this weekend, hopefully. Not seen her for
Oh,
ages.
lovely.
Looking forward to that.
So was she the first person outside the family that found out?
No, I don't think so.
Oh,
No, I think someone who I shall remain nameless came round to the house. So when I got back from the hospital, somebody was
that day.
that day, somebody
Mhm.
was a friend of ours was already here because I think Gemma had reached out and told them, and they came round immediately.
Right.
So,
Okay.
but it does then you have the question of, well, who do you tell and how? And
Mhm.
where do you draw the line? And it kind of got to a point where I was kind of had sort of WhatsApp groups where I was like, well, can you? So I had one port of call. Can you tell old school friends or whatever, and kind of
Mhm.
keep them updated, because I can't. It's like a full-time job then. Update once the cat's out the bag, then it's a full-time job updating people with, well, so for example, the aftermath of that was that we went for a walk the next day, just completely like as if we were hungover or drunk or whatever, just in a complete daze, and got a phone call going, you need to come in this afternoon. So we were literally in on the Thursday afternoon. So I've gone off on a tangent now, but it was going on the Thursday afternoon, and we see the surgeon, and that's when they confirm, yeah, you've got 6 months was a positive outcome. That's when we were told like timescales.
And this was the day after
So the
your
day after,
initial
yeah. So all of a sudden,
diagnosis,
things have from 3 weeks, everything's gravy. It's fine. They would have told me by now. The reason it took 3 weeks apparently is because it all went round the houses with all these like world experts going, well, we think it's anaplastic thyroid cancer, but surely it can't be anaplastic thyroid cancer because that mainly affects is one, it's very rare, and two, it normally affects women over 60. So and me, obviously. So it went all around the houses for all these different tests and double tests and second opinions and what have you, and then they've gone, yeah. But as soon as that happened, then we're into full overdrive. So literally the next day, you need to come in this afternoon. And he basically said, the surgeon said, right, you need to come in for a second operation. You'll need to do a COVID test. But quite frankly, it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant whether you're positive or not. You've got to come in. You've got to come in on Monday and have this. I've got a window on Monday. You need to come in. If you are positive, then my team will just need to take extra precautions because you need to come in and get the rest of your thyroid out.
Wow. So even the COVID protocol went out the window for you.
Yes. And luckily I wasn't,
Oh.
I didn't have COVID anyway, because obviously hadn't gone anywhere. But basically, doesn't matter. You're coming in Monday. You need to get this out. And I go, all right. So there is a chance then that we can, save this. Oh, no. You've misunderstood. What will happen, because it's like wildfire. It will start to grow in the rest of your thyroid gland and will expand very rapidly and will impact on your breathing and your swallowing and your windpipe and all that sort of thing. And it will make the end very, very messy when you're in palliative care. So at that point, I'm then going, right, okay, so I'm going in for an operation on Monday, basically not to cure me, but just to make the end less grim, which puts you in again, talking of mind cake, puts you in a slightly different frame of mind. Because I mean, I must admit, the first time I went in, obviously because they've done an ultrasound and they've, it's all very not jolly, but yes, you're going in for an operation. But with 2 young kids, I quite enjoyed a night at the hospital, being, food coming to your bed. I got a full night's kip. All right, yes, they've slit your throat open, but I mean, it's all relative, isn't it? I actually preferred that. So actually trying to
Swings
get
and
the kids to bed.
roundabouts, mate.
Exactly, yeah. The second time you go in, I'm slightly different mindset, and I remember one of the nurses saying, because obviously you won't have a thyroid, so you'll have to take these thyroxine tablets. All right, okay, and you're going to have to take them for the rest of your life. And I'm like, oh, great. What, 6 fucking months?
Yeah.
I'll bleep that out. It's fine. Because I don't think people have got any idea. For them, I don't think they were aware of my situation. I was just a person going in for a routine operation to have my thyroid removed.
Yeah.
To the point where, the second time round, I've got lots of these stories, but the second time round, they rushed off their feet at the second hospital. It's a different hospital, much busier. I can only assume that the first operation was textbook. Second operation, much more invasive. They're getting basically everything out that isn't keeping me alive. So, any nodes, nodules, apparently there's like calcium nodes and all that, everything that they could get out came out. So I'm feeling rough, and I feel like there's like clots in my chest, and I'm struggling to breathe, and it's a pain in my throat, and sort of like a barbed wire in my throat, which I didn't have the first time round. And so I remember the guy comes around the bed with the clipboard and says, right, I'm just got your pain threshold. So 0 being no pain whatsoever and 10 being excruciating. Can you tell me, what do you think your pain threshold is? So I'm explaining, well, I've got barbed wire in my throat and I'm really struggling to breathe and it doesn't feel right. And I was obviously anxious. And I think I'm probably a 7 or an 8. And I remember he looked me up and down and went, yeah, I'll put you down as a 5. And then walked off. So again, I'm there having been told, and again, we'll come on to this at a later date, that my side thing is writing. Now, for a dark comedy, that is genius, right? That is going in somewhere. But at the time, when you're like, I'm just making a bit of a fuss, really. You're like, you've been given 6 months to live, mate. But at the time, I'm like, oh well, I won't ring the bell and I won't make a fuss, and obviously he thinks I'm a 5 and I'm just kind of play acting at it and blah 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 blah. So again, your mental health is all over the shop. So yeah, and then obviously you come out from that having been told that have the recovering from that operation, you've had two operations, and I think I mentioned I was in having radiation treatment, radioactive iodine treatment, and then so you've told maybe friends and immediate friends and family. But then when do you cast that net wider? And I said to Gemma, I said, I'm going to have to put like a post out on Facebook or something. Well, no, you can't do that. It's a private thing. And so we mulled it over for a couple of days. I went, do you know what? I am going to have to put something out. I said, because the alternative, I mean, I know it's, you're going public then and the floodgates will open. But the alternative is that we don't say anything to, people who have maybe gone to school with them, people who you would consider friends, but you maybe haven't talked to for a while. And all of a sudden, the alternative is that come Christmas, you're gonna have to put a post on Facebook going, that's Lee gone into palliative care, or worse still, that's Lee. I'm so sorry to announce that Lee's died. So no, I'm laughing.
Yeah, and nobody's.
Go, what? We didn't know anything about this. He's dead. Yep. Sorry. And she went, yeah, well, good point. Yeah, you're gonna have to put something out on Facebook, and then that's how that kind of. So then the cat's well and truly out the bag.
I take it that you had an overwhelming kind of wave of response to that post.
Yes, a lot of likes, a lot of hug emojis. A few people reached out.
But then did it become a bit of a pain though? Just like, oh god, here's another message. Because you must have been inundated.
Yeah, it's
did you have to just sort of repeat yourself to like hundreds of people? Because everybody would be like, oh my god, I'm so sorry to hear that. How are you?
Yeah,
I don't know. You had to type the message again.
Yeah, I mean, so Gemma did a lot of the sort of friends and family stuff, and then I had like one port of call that I generally went, right, this is the update. Can you tell everybody, because I don't want to really repeat myself 100 times. But I would say people who actually sort of messaged me like privately were few and far. So people were lovely and left comments on sort of Facebook posts that I would leave. And I think I tended to sort of overkill it. It was just every now and again. Yeah, I think it's interesting who comes. So people who and again, this sounds like I'm moaning or whatever. It's just a reflective kind of thought, really. But people who you thought would come out of the woodwork, who had your back, maybe didn't. And then people who you didn't really maybe have that strong a connection with. Hello, Colin. Suddenly came out of the blue and were like, right, this is what we're doing. Do you want to go out for a walk? Do you want to do this? Do you want to talk about it? Do you want to, and we're just there as a sounding board. And it's interesting that when something like that happens, who actually steps forward and who kind of retreats in. And that's not a criticism of him, because I think I think not now, but previous to this, I think I would have been a retreater going, oh no, I don't know what do you say? I don't know what to do. You know, as I said, I think in the main episode, there were, people ringing me up drunk going, I can't believe it's happened. It's there, it's okay. But yeah, it is.
I guess it is that way. Like, they've liked your post, maybe left a little comment, and that's as much as they can offer or deal with, because they probably feel a bit useless.
Mm-hmm.
And you've said this before, but it's like, what do you say to somebody who says, yeah, I'm not going to be here in 6 months?
No.
Like, words just become meaningless,
And talking, I think going to mental health as well. I mean, people say, oh, and this, again, I repeat myself, but this is why, I'm doing it, is that people have come out and said, well, I've heard your story, and you were basically readying yourself. And it's interesting, like trigger points. So people have said, oh, because my birthday was in December, it must have been difficult. And I was dreading my birthday, because I'm thinking, well, this is it. This is the last one. And it was actually okay.
When's your birthday again?
December the 6th.
The what?
The 6th.
The 6th. Oh, yeah.
And I'll be 50 this year, which again, I think, we are going off at another tangent here. There's 2 tangents. So I think, I think people, maybe particularly men, I don't know, approaching 50, I think there's something weird about that half a century. And I'm of this opinion that on the one hand, I'm like, oh, Jesus, I'm going to be 50. That's just ancient. And then on the other hand, like, well, you should be celebrating it, because you didn't think you were going to get to 49. Yeah, I think, I'm rapidly approaching 50. I'm rapidly approaching the age that my dad passed away from bowel cancer. He was mid-50s. Mm-hmm. And so I think that plays into things. But I think people, how did you cope with, sorry, we're talking about trigger points, weren't we? Trigger points. So birthdays, Christmas, it was actually okay. Yes, it was a bit emotional. It was okay. But do you know what really got me?
What?
Was putting the Christmas decorations back in the loft.
Because you thought that'll be the last time I do that.
Which is, again, not something you go, oh, this is going to be, I've got through my birthday, okay, not too bad. I've got through Christmas, but putting the Christmas decorations back in the loft and shutting the lid, going, I wonder who's going to be getting them down next year.
Yeah, I'm not going to.
So I just chucked them up any old how. Woo, not my problem. No, I didn't. And then
tangled all the lights up deliberately.
Some could do that next time, next year. No, so yeah, and you go, whoa. I mean, I don't know why your brain, and that's to say how your brain works, is just like, it wasn't that it was the last Christmas, it was the last time I'd put the decorations back in the loft.
It's the funny little moments that trigger a reaction, rather than, and it's not the big events, it's sometimes just the really innocuous little things that set you off.
Yeah. What else were we talking about then? Because I was going off at another tangent and then I've lost it again.
Oh, well, we're talking about your birthday. Speaking of birthdays, my birthday's not long after yours, actually. Less than a week after yours.
Is it?
Yeah. So we'll have to have a special birthday
cake.
Birthday mind cake.
Birthday mind
in
cake.
December.
Now, talking about people stepping forward, I wonder who's going to step forward and make us a joint birthday mind cake. Yeah.
All you bakers out there, the 102 listeners, there must be somebody who can bake us a nice cake.
Yeah, you think so?
I don't want no store-bought, not for my birthday.
No.
And it's your 50th. I mean, that's, I'm nowhere near as old as you. So
right.
This is, we've got we've got to celebrate this milestone.
Yeah. And I think that's the way I need to frame it, because there is, there's things that I feel that I'm falling apart at the seams rapidly approaching 50, but actually I think it is something to celebrate. And I think it's how you frame that. And that's how I'm trying to frame it, to celebrate being 50, because, ultimately you didn't think you were going to get it.
I think given the circumstances, this is a huge milestone, not just because it's 50 and you're old as dirt, but it's
dirt.
As dirt.
Wow.
I can't swear in this podcast anymore, Lee.
Well, I already have. Yeah, no, I do. Gotta get the bleep machine out, I think. And
anyway, yeah. So,
but I think that's, sorry, going back. I think again that ties into why are you doing the podcast? Well, because I think yes. So that's the backstory. But people have said, well, how did you cope? And the reality is that I'm still coping. I'm not this. As I said before, it's such an inspirational story, and you're so brave, and you're so strong, and you're so. I kind of, again, I'm not trying to. I can feel myself shrugging as I'm saying this, but I kind of done what anybody else would have done. I didn't think I would be able to cope with this, but you haven't really got much of a choice. And in terms of where you go mentally, I had a thing, and I'm laying it all on the table now, but I couldn't cope with thinking at the beginning any more than probably 10, 15 minutes ahead. So I couldn't get out of bed in the morning because it was just too awful. And you're tired and emotional and whatever. But you go, right, just get out of bed. And they go, so how did I cope in those early days? Just get out of bed. Right, just do your teeth. Right.
One little step at a time.
The tiniest step at a time. Just put your clothes on. Just have your breakfast. And I wasn't looking ahead any more than that.
That's a good piece of advice, I think. I mean, that's not the first time I've heard that kind of tactic used with, when people are struggling with mental health and things. And it's like, oh, I can't get out of bed. I can't face the day. And it's just trying to break rather than viewing the whole day in front of you, it's just little small achievable things that you just achieve one thing and then on to the next little thing, and before you know it, you're at the end of the day.
And that's the only way I could cope, because shall I tell you what the alternative was? The alternative was, and this happened when I didn't, and the weird thing is, you talk about, and this might be something we talk about in a future episode of mindfulness. I am not a person who lives in the present. I'm always reminiscing about the past or planning what I'm going to be doing in the future. But in that time, that's probably the most mindful I've been, because you are literally doing one and concentrating on that task, however menial, one task at a time. Because the alternative was, which is, so I'm struggling just thinking about this. The alternative was that, thinking about my kids, I don't remember anything. So Erin would be 6-8 months old by then. Isabel was 3. I don't remember anything from when I was 3. So if I thought too far ahead, I was thinking of, me being in palliative care, what that looked like, my kids and my wife seeing me in that state, but then moving on from that, because your mind just goes to these places, or mine did anyway. I even invented a character. So, my wife would have been a widow at 40, so she's probably going to meet somebody else sometime in the future. I even gave him a name, Brian. Brian's probably not done a day's work in his life, and he's going to move in here. And my kids aren't going to remember me. I'm just going to be some old duffer in a photograph they don't even know. And Brian's going to be their dad, and they might even call him dad. He's going to move in here, this house that I've worked my life to provide for, and blah blah blah. And that's just, gut wrenching. That not that Gemma was going to meet somebody else, but the fact that my kids would kind of look up to Brian. I know it's ridiculous, but this is. But
that's what your mind does, doesn't it?
He'd be their dad. And I'm your dad. It's me. And it's just, and you get quite angry about it. So hence, do your teeth, put your shoes on, go for a walk, whatever. Because thinking about your own mortality and ultimately your death, and then the aftermath of that. And I'm sure people will be sad for a bit, but then life goes on. The kids have still got to go to school.
It goes on for everyone else, doesn't it?
Of course it does. Of course it does. And I've said this before. In some ways, mine was the easy bit, because I was dead. And I think I hope my wife doesn't mind me saying this, but I think it's quite not divisive. But in my head, I'm thinking, right, what do I need to do in the next 6 months, because time is precious. Her mind's almost going to, what the hell am I going to do after 6 months when I'm a single parent now, a widow at 40, and I've got to raise 2 kids who haven't got their dad. So. We've kind of got different agendas, if that makes sense. Which is kind of
totally
weird in itself. But I hate Brian. I hate Brian.
I hate him too.
What a knob.
Yeah.
Comes in here.
Got
his own slippers. Right.
So,
anyway,
going to give a little shout out to my cousin. Randomly, there's a reason for this. So my cousin Paul, who lives in Australia, he's one of our Aussie international listeners. He visited Scotland in 2018, and he stayed with me, and I was living with my mum at the time, and so he kind of stayed at my mum's for a bit, so we hung out for a couple of weeks, and he's had his struggles with mental health as well. We were getting to talking about stuff, and the one thing that one of the things he said that stuck with me was, and I am going to swear here, so you can beep this out.
I'll bleep it.
But he said, talking about what you're talking about, like with Brian, this imagined scenario that isn't going to happen, but you can't stop the scenario kind of happening in your head. And he was like, that is a bullshit belief. And he said, particularly when your mental health is taking a dip, bullshit beliefs can ruin you. Like they can just take over. And And he said, so you have to try and train your mind to go, that is a bull belief. That's not a thing. You know, it's not happening. It's a fabrication.
Yeah.
And he says, once you can sort of approach it like that, and then you focus on, like you say, the smaller things in the present that are actually happening. But the Brian made me think. Brian, the bull belief.
No, there's no evidence to suggest that Brian, well, he didn't exist and that he would ever exist. But that doesn't change.
He was very real, wasn't he?
He was very real, and it didn't change the fact that, you know, whether there was a Brian or not, that my kids were going to grow up and not know who I was, and have really I'm just some old. Who's that? Oh, it's your dad. Oh, is it? I've no recollection of him, and that's just heartbreaking.
Oh, it's devastating.
Anyway, I think that's it now. I think I've divulged everything I want to divulge about my the inner workings of my cancer brain.
Yeah, and all of that you've spoken about sort of in today's episode is what has led you to doing Mindcake, which we're both very excited about. And like you say, the feedback's been pretty good so far, and we're only going to try and polish things up, make them better, do lots of interesting things to keep it interesting. So yeah, we're dead excited.
No, I've been buzzing about this. I know I've been looking forward to recording this all week because, like I say, I think it's had far more listens than I expected. And like I say, if it helps 2-3 people, once we get into the actual meat and bones of actually, yeah. So it might be a good point to say what we're hoping to do on the next episode, which I am going to, as I said, I see a clinical psychologist and I'm on meds. So I'm hoping to speak to Jan, my clinical psychologist, and she's going to talk to us about ACT therapy. So Jan, I've been working with Jan on ACT, which is, she's going to tell me off because I can't remember what it stands for, but it's basically it's looking after yourself, self-compassion, and not beating yourself up as much. So she will explain it obviously much better than me, which is why we're getting her on, because she's an expert.
Wonderful. Okay, Lee, well, thank you for sharing all of that. I know, obviously, it's not easy at times to relive some of that and to talk about it, but I'm sure
I feel I've overshared a little bit.
I'd rather you overshared than, sat there in silence, because that wouldn't work for a podcast. That wouldn't
make a very good podcast, no. And I was just going to say, I think we should play it in the actual episode, the meat of the episode. We did mention that funeral music, and we've obviously played your funeral music over there, or you've edited it in. You've edited it in. So I think it's only fair. And again, I think this ties in with the bonus episode that we're going to do of how we know each other and how we then know Peter McVeigh. Peter McVeigh, who did the jingle for us very kindly. Thank you, Peter.
Again, smashing. Cheers, Pete.
He, again, talking about people who came out the woodwork, who I didn't really know that well. But yeah, we had a lot of text chat. He's very supportive. So thank you. We're going to play out with for all of my differences, for all our differences, which was the theme to Game of Cones, which will hopefully make more sense when you've listened to the bonus episode. Do you want to do the housekeeping things? So
if you're listening out there and you want to get in touch with us about anything, you can find us on Facebook if you search for Mindcake. If you are a Twitter or Insta user, you can find us at Mindcake Podcast. And if you want to send us an email the old-fashioned way, we are at sliceofmindcake@gmail.com. So we'd love to hear some of your thoughts and stuff, so please get in touch.
Beautifully done.
Thanks.
We'll leave it there and play out with the wonderful Peter McVeigh.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you in the next one.
Thanks for listening. Bye.
Life's not fair. It's not meant to be fair. One day you're here, and the next you're not there. So just relax and let down your hair. I know that there's somebody there who maybe cares for you. For all For all our differences, I love you. For all our differences, our lives are just the same. So make our difference say I love you. See, life's not sweet, it's not meant to be sweet. I spend my days just trying to stay on my feet. So just lay back and watch what you read, and hope that someday it makes sense when it's all gone through. For all our differences, our lives are just the same. For all our differences, I love you. For all our differences, our lives are just the same. So